he's a degenerate gambler.
You are a smelly pirate hooker.
And he's cheaper than oxygen.
He's useless.
But somehow, they make it work. Jeremy Greene, Tank Spencer. There's no holding back in the Sportsocracy. Presented by Ingles Supermarkets and Fred Anderson Nissan of Asheville.
It is the Sportsocracy, and this is ESPN Asheville, 92.9 FM, 880 AM, and 1400 second hour of the program. Heard everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. You can see us live in the Ingles studio on YouTube. Just go to thesportsocracy.com, click that live video link, subscribe to the channel, so you can join us in the chat, get your thoughts in on the topics of the day, whether it be biggest draft needs for certain NFL teams, or Aaron Rodgers, or Washington Commanders, whatever is on the table in the chat. And, of course, we could talk Draftmas season stuff.
Oh, Draftmas tree, oh, Draftmas tree.
The 2023 NFL Draft is coming up very shortly.
How lovely are thy tight ends.
And today it's top 13 tight ends, as dubbed by at ESPN Draft Nerd, Jeremy Greene.
This is my favorite position in this draft, and I'm not sure it's all that close.
Do you like it just because it has elite-type players at the top of the tight end class, or is it the overall depth of the class?
The depth is fantastic. This is like TCBY. We got 31 flavors, baby. Anything you possibly could ever want.
That was Baskin-Robbins, but okay. Keep
going.
What?
I don't like ice cream, okay? I tried to do a pop culture, and I boo-boo kitty to do shot.
TCBY, that was frozen yogurt. That was gross stuff.
Yeah, you stop that. TCBY was awesome. That was actually the only ice cream I've ever really liked. But you know what I really do like?
What's wrong with you?
My number one tight end in this class, and it's not really all that close. It's Michael Mayer.
Mm-hmm. If he's not your number one.
If he's not your number one, you're doing it wrong.
Exactly.
I mean, what more could you possibly want than a 6'4", 249-pound tight end? Are his hands a little teeny? Maybe. Is he the fastest guy you've ever seen? No. 4'7". He's the best blocking tight end in this class, and it's not all that close.
Mm-hmm.
I think he will be the best receiving tight end in this class. Dalton Kincaid is kind of close to him in that. Look, if you've watched Notre Dame over the course of the last handful of years, you've watched this and gone, man, that 87 kid's real good. I don't care what system you run. I don't care what you ask tight ends to do. He can do it.
Mm-hmm.
He's a matchup nightmare if you put a slot corner on him because he's so big and he's so physical. Yet again, I say he's one of the only tight ends in this class that can block. And look, I know we're getting away from that. You're seeing more of the Darren Wallers who couldn't block me, Mark Andrews who's not a great blocker, but you still come to a point where they call this kid Baby Gronk for a reason, and it's because I think he can be that good.
Mm-hmm.
He's been a top 10 player in this class for me since it started, and I'm not off of that. I think he is that good. I look at him potentially with the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that's his floor. I don't think he's going to make it that far. I know they just signed Irv Smith, who I love, and he gets a second lease on life. And, yeah, I think he's going to be pretty good. Got away from Kirk Cousins and went to Joe Burrow. It seems like a pretty good way of prolonging your career.
Right.
But, I could see Mayer going as high as 15 to the Packers. I think they have another guy in mind that fits more of exactly what they do. But he could go that high. Other potential fits, the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants. The thought of him and Darren Waller on the same field kind of gives me those warm tinglies that I just really want it to happen, even though I don't think it will.
Right. Michael Mayer's he's not a developmental talent.
No, he comes in immediately.
Right. Immediately comes in as one of the best tight ends in the league.
And I'll tell you this: if Michael Mayer had come into the NFL in 2003 instead of 2023, he'd have been top 5 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, the only thing you really ding him on is he's not exactly the fleet of foot tight end that you want him to be. He's not running a 4.4 like Kyle Pitts. No, he's not that guy. Kyle Pitts also couldn't block my wife. So it kind of give and take. I love this kid. and somebody is going to get an absolute steal with him somewhere in the middle to late part of the first round.
Mm-hmm. I think the ceiling I've seen for him is like 13, and the floor is
Well, he ain't going to 13 because that's
20.
owned by the Jets, and it's not going to the Green Bay Packers. That's a little precursor to something I'm going to say a whole mess of times later.
Michael Mayer, the number 1 tight end in this class. And then is there much of a gap between him and number 2?
Depends on what you're looking for. For me, there is a gap, but it's because I do like a tight end that can at least – I'm not going to say scare you as a blocker, but he is a conscious blocker. My number 2 is Dalton Kincaid out of Utah. And now this kid is more the height, weight, speed. The ironic thing is I don't think he's any faster than Michael Mayer, but he didn't run. So there's no way for us to know that.
Mm-hmm.
He is more of he's a phenomenal receiver. I mean, he kind of reminds me of Dalton Schultz, if I was going to be honest. That's why I keep giving him to the Dallas Cowboys, because this is a 4 years of team control with a 5th-year option version of exactly what you just lost. Now, in terms of blocker, not going to in any way really, not going to scare you doing that. But he's got that basketball-type player build. He's 6'4", 6'3", I think he came in at the combine, 245. He's just a really good move piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I played a good number of snaps in college. There's not much for me to ding him on, except he is not that prolific blocker. He's the best route runner in this class at tight end.
And I think a lot of that has to do with, size and girth. And
He's
your
not
athletic
huge.
ability. Right. I mean,
this is a kid that's going to come into the league and play in the slot probably 40% of his snaps.
Right.
He'll line up in line from time to time. But if teams see that, they're going to go, well, that means we've got an uncovered tackle right here because he's not even going to feign like he's blocking us. So there's a catch-22 to that. Think of Darren Waller with the Las Vegas Raiders for last few years. He lined up in the slot all the time. Kincaid's not nearly as big and he's not nearly as fast. Way better route runner. I mean, those two aren't even in the same class as route runners to me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking for the traditional tight end, you better find a way to get Michael Mayer.
So you had him going in the 3-round mock draft to the Dallas Cowboys.
I can't get away from it.
Is that an automatic come in, start day one,
Yes.
be a star?
Yes. In that offense, to me, one of the things I do in mock drafts is who can I put in that completes everything? Because Dalton Kincaid's one of those players that's going to make every player on the team better. Because if you leave that middle open, think of and I hate this comparison because I don't see them the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Think of Travis Kelce. All right, you had Tyreek Hill that would beat you over the top. Brandon Cooks. You had the receiver that would just, whether it was Demarcus Robinson, whoever it was, that could make they were fast, but they could make a physical catch. And then the middle was just wide open because you only have so many players to put so many places. And so I look at Dalton Kincaid with the Dallas Cowboys, and I think that is an immediate, we'll say a pain. That would be a pain for defenses to try to defend.
All right, the third best tight end in this 2023 NFL draft class is?
This has changed for me in the last probably 2 weeks. Sam Laporta out of Iowa.
And what made you change? Because you're often one that says you shouldn't change your mind after no football's been played.
And I don't disagree with it. I think I had kind of shoehorned Sam Laporta into, he's just a stereotypical Iowa tight end that can do a little bit of everything. He's not as good a blocker as I'm used to from Iowa tight ends. I actually think he's better than many others do. And then he went out and ran a 4.59, and I went, well, that changes things just a bit because now the fact that you're so small doesn't bother me as much. My biggest knock on him was always his hands. I don't think he's more of a body catcher than I want him to be. But then again, I go back to Iowa and go, well, you couldn't have scored if you partied at a frat house and you brought the beer. So I'm not necessarily going to hold that against you because he was the only player on the team at times that legitimately scared me. So I think he comes into a spot. I like him with Cincinnati is a fit for him. That's who I had him going to in the last mock draft.
Mm-hmm.
Carolina is one I like with him. And I think his drop dead spot is probably the Miami Dolphins. Miami doesn't have a pick until the middle of the second round, and I can't for the life of me figure out how it's not going to be a tight end. Because now that you've given up Hunter Long, Mike Gesicki's walked away, I think you're a bad draft away from calling me and asking, you still got them mitts? Can you just talk about tight ends or maybe get a little lather out here, big boy? But that's not the one I had going to them. I think he'll be gone before that.
All right. Number 4.
This is the one I had at 4 for the longest time. And nothing has specifically changed except I'm more closely examining that, man, there's a lot of projection with you. It's Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State. He played the snaps, but he just didn't produce. And so I look at him and go, you look like a tight end. I think he runs about a 4.6. I mean, he's been hurt, so he hasn't been able to do any of this in the process.
Mm-hmm.
He's 6'5", 250. I like all of that. But he's got a little Sasquatch to him, and you're going to see that that's a common theme between my 4 and my 5, of, yeah, you look like Tarzan. You play like Jane sometimes. And the production wasn't necessarily there. Is that because of the quarterback play? Is it because of the system you played in? All of those could be true. There are plenty of players that are not super productive in college that come in and they meet their athletic potential in the NFL. That's what I feel like a lot of us think Luke Musgrave's going to be. It's just the more you examine him, the more you go, but why did I never see it? Ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were flashes, and then it would immediately go away. And so I'm taking the freak, going in the right system. He can be a dog in the right system. But if the wrong team drafts him, he could be one of those we look back on 2 or 3 years from now and go, what in the world did you see in him?
Why did you waste a 3rd-round pick on him?
And I would say he's got the highest bust rate of any of the tight ends in this class. And I would say 5 is the only one that's even vaguely close to him.
Okay. And at number 5?
It's Darnell Washington out of Georgia. You're a Georgia fan. How many times did you look at Darnell Washington and go, he's the best player on this field?
Never.
It never
Not
happened,
once.
not one time.
Not once did you ever look, because they had Brock Bowers. Now, had there been no Brock Bowers, then you would have went, okay, he's the best tight end in the SEC. He probably would have been used more. I think you would have.
Would you have?
Yeah, because, look, there's no disputing the size and the athleticism that he has and the ferocity that he comes blocking with. I mean, this guy is a perfect old school tight end, and maybe that's the problem.
He is. I mean, he's very large. He's 6'7", 264.
Mm-hmm. And will tear your head off.
And he's reasonably quick. Good blocker. There's just really not a ton of production.
Mm-mm.
And so that's why it's hard for me to differentiate the two. He's a better blocker. I don't think he's nearly as good of a receiver. And I call him the trash man. Because virtually every catch he ever had, there was somebody draped on him like a cheap suit.
Yep.
He never separated from anyone, but everybody tells me how fast he is. I don't – he's one of those I watch the tape and I just don't get it. Like, if you're that big, that fast, that physical, why did I never see you do that? And I get you had the best tight end prospect ever. Wait till I get to talk about Brock Bowers for 3 months next year. That'll be fun. There's a possibility I'll take him at 3 next year.
Yeah.
He's that good.
Yeah, he is.
But I'm just – there are things about Darnell Washington that don't add up to me. And it also might be the fact that I can't physically see a way that he doesn't end up as a Green Bay Packer. Because he reminds me of Mercedes Lewis so much that it's gross.
Mm-hmm.
And you know I hate player comps. I detest them because they're almost always lazy. And it's either, well, this guy played at the same school and they're the same size. And the game is nothing alike.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those where that's not the case.
Right.
The games are very similar. The production in college is very similar. And I could easily see a path that the production in the NFL is the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Mercedes Lewis had more than 2 or 3 years where he had more than 26 catches. He was also the big tight end you could put in and go, hey, we're at the 3-yard line, and you're about to just ruin somebody's day.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna throw it at the crossbar, and you go get it.
Mm-hmm.
And Darnell can do that.
Or I'm going to run it right behind your tail feathers, and you're going to eviscerate someone's soul.
Right.
Because he can do that.
Look,
I've seen him do that.
Right. I mean, the Georgia offense was good this year, But you get inside 5 yards, I mean, you might as well just chalk it up. They're going to score because of Darnell Washington. It didn't matter who scored the touchdown, whether it was, whether it was, any of the running backs or whether it was Stetson running it in. Usually the big key block came on the edge from Darnell.
And that's the thing I know he can do. For me, that's what gives him the safer floor. He does not have a ceiling like Luke Musgrave. Just doesn't. Let me ask you a question. And we got to take a break after this.
Mm-hmm.
You're a Georgia fan.
Yep.
3 years. How many touchdowns did Darnell Washington score?
2?
3.
3.
How many catches did he have in 3 years?
17.
45. You were so bad at that game. I don't even know why I tried doing it.
He wasn't used a lot.
No, he
That's
wasn't.
the point.
But he does have the potential, and so that's why he slots in for me at number 5.
All right, Darnell Washington rounds out the top 5 of Jeremy Greene's top 13 tight ends in the 2023 NFL draft class.
And after this, it's a rapid fire round, 1 minute on the next 8.
The Sportsocracy.
Pull up your pants, take off the bra, and be a man.
It is the midst of the draftmas season, and we continue with top 13s. It's top 13 tight ends from Tight End Whisperer, Jeremy Greene.
This is also just flat out a great year for tight ends.
At ESPN Draft Nerd on Twitter, he's got Michael Mayer as the number 1 tight end of the class, Dalton Kincaid, number 2, Sam Laporta out of Iowa, Luke Musgrave, he's a Beaver, he's good, at number 4, and at number 5, Darnell Washington, the Sasquatch from Georgia, because I was told all this time, he's the greatest tight end ever. I don't see it. I get the physical tools that he has, but he doesn't get much playing time on his own team.
It's grainy footage that elicits Robbie Anderson to go, hey, what's that bear doing?
Right. And if I had a dime for every pass that was thrown his way that somehow he just couldn't corral it, as you said, because he can't get separation from anybody. I mean, he could have had 15 touchdowns for the Georgia Bulldogs in the last 2 years. But it never came to fruition.
And now we're on to the rapid-fire round of the top 13s.
All right, number 6.
Tucker Kraft out of San Diego State. If you told me there was a player in this draft that wound up just grossly overproducing his draft slot, it's Tucker Kraft. Because in terms of raw talent, he should probably be 3. But he played at such a lower level. His route tree is not really defined. He really rounds off routes. But no, if it's just, hey, can you get open and can you do crazy things with a football in your hand?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he checks that box. And I think he can actually be a better blocker in the NFL than I have seen from him so far, because they really didn't ask him to do that. And so I have him going to the Miami Dolphins in the middle of the second round, and that has quickly become one of my favorite pairings of team and player.
All right, the Jackrabbit from South Dakota State, Tucker Kraft.
He's a jackrabbit.
At number 6, I think you said San Diego State. So I just wanted to clarify
very well minded.
that.
South Dakota State.
SDSU always throws me off too.
Well, it usually doesn't me, but I think I've seen SDSU so many times that now it's planted in my head.
And now they're in the Final Four, so they're in the top of the mind. Number 7.
I have this guy higher than anybody else in the industry, and it's not close. Will Mallory out of Miami. I've loved him for as long as I can remember. You remember when I said that thing about all the USC receivers for like 4 years in a row of you're so poorly coached? There's been so much inconsistency with how you were coached and what you were asked to do that you're going to go to the NFL to a smart team. San Diego Chargers. Yeah, I called them San Diego. That time I actually did it on purpose. SD, sorry. You're going to go to one of those teams that is going to know how to use you. And years from now, we're going to look back and go, how on earth did we miss this so bad? I mean, this kid ran a 4.54 at 6'4", 240 pounds. And you're telling me he couldn't find a way to catch a ball in Miami. There were times that I completely forgot he was on the team. And I think that goes to bad quarterback play. I think it goes to bad coaching. For me, there are 7 really good tight ends in this class. And now is where we get to the precipitous drop-off.
At number 8.
Payne Durham, Purdue. I liked a lot of what he did in the All-Star game season. and I've seen some good, and then I go back to the tape and go, man, I didn't see this nearly enough out of you. He's really slow. That's what's going to kill him is that he ran a 4.87. Yeah, he's 6'5", 250, but to me, he's a mid-round guy, developmental. There's enough talent there that he definitely justifies a draft pick. I don't see the ceiling out of him that I see out of every other tight end I've already talked about.
At number 9.
Luke Schoonemaker out of Michigan. He's really big and athletic, and he disappears for extended periods of time as well. And he's just he's that jack of all trades, master of none. You do a lot of things well. I don't know that you have a go-to because you're fast, but I'm not sure that you're not track fast because I never thought he was 4.63 fast. I never saw that. He is not a take the top off, scare defenses, but he is big. I mean, 6'5", 250, and if you can run that fast in a straight line, there's certainly a role for you in the NFL. I'm just not 100% sure what it is, and you're going to have to be patient. I know you'll remember this name, and he just was brought back to the forefront because he was traded for Jalen Ramsey. He reminds me of the Wish version of Hunter Long. He doesn't do anything as well as Hunter Long did. But he's close. He's about the same size, about the same athletic ability. If you're willing to be patient, I think he could really reward you. But patience is not something we see a ton of in the NFL.
Number 10.
If it was just, hey, who's the best at track stuff? This got to be number 1 because he's a perfect 10 on the RAS scale. Zach Kuntz, Old Dominion. If we're just looking at raw ability, he is not of this world. 6'7", 255, ran a 4.55.
Shoot.
Here's what scares me, and here's why I've actually pushed him down the board, even with him doing that. He's going to be overdrafted. You mark my words. You mark my words, he will be overdrafted because he didn't do anything in college that makes me think he's this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Low level of competition. He's really good with the ball in his hand. The problem is that I've never seen him do it against any kind of a high-level defense. His best tape is against nobody. Another one that I think if you're really patient with him, he could pay off in time. I've heard he could go as high as the second round, which absolutely petrifies me because he's not that prospect. He's that athlete. He's not that prospect.
Mm-hmm. Not much of a blocker.
No. I mean, he's not a terrible blocker, but you also got to realize he's playing at Old Dominion. So, I mean, there's times he's blocking defensive ends that are 225 pounds. So, I haven't seen you do anything in that vein that translates to the NFL.
Number 11.
This is, a lot of people really like him, and I think he's athletic, and I think he's fine. I just think he's a dude. It's Josh Wiley, tight end out of Cincinnati. I don't really have anything that he does specifically well. He does a lot of the track things well. In terms of being quick at his size, he can do that. I don't think he has very good hands. I think he really benefited from playing on teams that were just exponentially more talented than everybody he came across. And he also learned this. I don't even really know how to describe this. He is the best I've ever seen at I'm going to slow play a route and make you think I don't blocking maybe. And then I just take off and hit a second gear against linebackers that they can't do anything with. The problem is that's about all he does at an NFL level. If you're patient, maybe you get something out of him down the line.
Number 12.
12 and 13 have a lot in common because they were highly recruited, and then you just didn't really see much out of them. 12 is Jaleel Billingsley out of Texas. I have waited for what feels like forever between Alabama and Texas for him to become the guy that was recruited, and he never has. I struggle to believe that Nick Saban and Steve Sarkisian, I was seeing his face, and I could not get his name out of my mouth. Same life. Couldn't get the most out of him, and it just never happened. He's got a little bit of a Sasquatch to him, too. I don't doubt that he's talented. I just have never seen it. From production and RAS score and all those things, he probably shouldn't be in the top 13. But I do know there's talent there, and if a team can mine it, then good for you. If you can't, then you completely wasted a draft pick.
All right, and finally, number 13.
Cameron Latu out of Alabama. If athleticism is what you're looking for, this ain't your dude, because he's kind of tall, real thin, and slow as dirt.
But what does he offer?
He's got real good hands. In the lesser number of opportunities that I've seen with him, he can just go get a ball that a lot of people don't. His hands are ridiculous. The problem is that zone coverage completely annihilates him. The only way he ever got open was that you would put a linebacker or a corner on him. He would physically manhandle corners, and he was just stronger than linebackers. So, I mean, all right, so I'll give you an example. If he played against one of these Robert Saleh, D'Amico Ryan, San Francisco 49ers disciple teams, you'd have to make him inactive because that's how bad he was against zone. He cannot find a soft spot.
Okay.
So, super raw. But yet again, he's got ferocious hands that I really can't teach. And that's how he winds up on the top 13.
All right, top 13 tight ends for the 2023 NFL draft class as chosen by @ESPN Draft Nerd, Jeremy Greene.